All right, everyone. Welcome to our new edition of DataCast. This time we're going to be recording in English because we have a great guest. We are the host, so a great guest, Chris Tabb. That might change during, our recording. But we are recording live, obviously, from Prague. As you can see, we have a new studio. We went from audio only to video recording. We are in Holešovice. Awesome studio. I love it. Chocho already, suggested if he can vape here. And yes, it's allowed.
Yeah, it's allowed.
So I'm going to wait what Chris is coming with. And this episode is going to be really interesting for us because Chris Tabb here is a famous LinkedIn influencer.
I just found out today. I didn't realize till today. Yeah.
Welcome, Chris. And with over 12,000 followers on LinkedIn, and that's actually huge, talking about business issues and mainly about data and architecture. And Chris is also one of the Late founders. And Late, as a company from UK, is actually was awarded a prize for Partner of the Year for EMEA region for both Snowflake and ThoughtSpot.
Yeah, ThoughtSpot was only emerging partner, but
sorry.
I don't want to get just to make sure it wasn't quite as good as a full partner.
Next year,
it's on the way. Next year,
it's on the way. And there is a connection with Czech. We are recording in Prague in Czech, and we're going to be talking about it. And Chris, by the way, congratulations on your new promotion to CCO.
Yeah.
What does it stand for?
Chief, well, there's many versions of it, but the one I go with is Chief Commercial Officer. It's just really a sign of the evolution of the company internally.
Awesome.
Well, what do? I do the sales, marketing, and help with some of the innovation. So it was better to structure it in a proper title rather than just co-founder.
Co-founder. Yeah. Well, we're gonna go to more in a minute what Late is doing. I just want to wrap up, prepare what we're gonna be doing today.
Yeah, get everyone prepared for a
bumpy
ride.
It's gonna go. Yeah. And the opportunity here today is first, Chris is hosting a great meetup. It's a series of his meetups. He will be talking about that later on. And also they are starting, if I may say, the Prague office.
Well, it's officially not yet, but as soon as we actually verify after everyone turns up at the event, which is inevitable tomorrow, then that's the proof I need that I think we need to start a Czech office.
And we'll get more in detail into those things because I think it's exciting, especially for this ecosystem around here. As Vojtara put it, Czech, what Switzerland is for money, Czech is for data. And
I like that.
It's actually interesting if you think about companies like Avast, Product Board with product management and data, or Shipmonk with data and e-commerce in US, or Manta, or Atacama, or Kebula. That's actually exciting. So today we're gonna have three parts: life of an influencer, Chris Tabb; business and life of Chris Tabb as a business person. He's seen so many patterns. I think, always talking to him is really exciting because he can see new patterns. He's like, seen that before, right? We're going to touch in the third part in architecture and technology, data platform, and is the cloud data operating system or what is lacking? And then we're going to close with, hey, what's next for you? Does it work for you?
That works for me.
All right, let's go. So when I look at Late website, especially LinkedIn, you say that, and quote, we focus on data strategy, data management, data security, data engineering, analytics, AI, and machine learning. Wow. We work with our clients too, and this is exciting, help them with their data maturity and accelerate business value from data. Late was established in 2018 by a group of data experts with substantial experience, which we got through many implementations across a wide spectrum of industries. We gained a significant breadth and depth.
Do you know what?
A lot of scars.
There was a lot of battle scars and a lot of seeing what's done well, seeing what's done badly.
How would you introduce Late yourself in your own words?
So probably not as long as that now. I might start to abbreviate it and just to show how well you've done the research. I think you'd gone through the website a bit more detail than I had recently. So I think, there's some interest. Oh yeah, I did say that. Yeah.
Wow, when did I?
Is it still valid? Let me check. So how I describe ourselves as being able to bridge that gap between business and technology for our clients and be able to translate what they need to do at the right time in the right order to achieve the business value with data.
Yeah.
And if you try and take away all the different technologies and all those the list of specialities needed there, you just need a thin slice of them all to achieve a bit of business value. And it's how you keep iterating and adding more of those slices to add the value in a cycle that's is controllable, structured, well designed, well thought out, and a defined roadmap. Maybe learned from people that have seen what have gone wrong in the past, that we know is a correct recipe to do it for your company with the maturity and where you are on that roadmap.
This is interesting. So you actually look always where is your company in the maturity in data and map the business value, right?
Yeah, exactly. So for example, a one-man band, I think I've used this before. He can have a very good spreadsheet that he can run his business on. Yep. He doesn't need to go and build a modern data stack. And you got the opposite end of the spectrum, a company like Coca-Cola or Pepsi, where the smallest algorithm on how they can optimize distribution, tin structure, or sourcing different materials. It's worth them having an army of data scientists looking at it, because the smallest metric can add a big competitive advantage in the industry, and also maybe a difference between a large profit or a loss.
We actually see that in Czech, with the company called Rohlík Group or Knusper, and they just saw efficient in operation how they work with data, and that's the whole difference between them and the competition on return on capital employed, for example, right? So they need 10 times less capital, 3 times less people.
Yeah, and I think the whole world is all about optimization now, and I think there was a period where people just used to throw people at the problem, thinking, right, okay, we've got a data problem, let's hire 15 data engineers. And it's like the old analogies. You can't have 9 women to give birth to a baby in 1 month.
1 month, right?
So there's some
many
things.
Many have tried though.
There's some things that you cannot parallelize, and there's some things that if you don't get the foundations right, it'll take you. It'll cost you more in the long run. It'll actually add risk. So my view is, if you invest up front in the foundations, what you can do, you can increase the time to value and decrease the cost and risk over time.
So go slower so you can go faster. Yeah.
Exactly. So what the problem is the companies, how their organization structures, it's not always helping or encouraging that approach. Yeah. A CDO or a CTO comes in, he's been given 6 months to turn something around. He'll make knee-jerk reactions, or maybe not have the time to go and do that planning piece. He's inherited a brownfield site. He doesn't know the team that's there. So it's a challenge for any new C-level or a management team to be able to come in and make value quite quickly, unless they go to the people that have either done this before or can de-risk that activity for them.
It's actually interesting what you're saying. I hear. You're not talking about data engineers and data people. If I listen to you and I read your posts, a lot of times you talk about C-level people, business owners, people who actually are tasked with the responsibility to turn the business around, and about the business value, and not so much about tech, because it's goes after, right? And there's a question for you. I've seen that trend. Becoming more and more prominent. 6 years ago, people are talking, oh, this is great. It's a technology, new feature. Oh, this is a great feature. Let's start a company. And nowadays, there is a whole sphere of influencers like yourself, Lauren Balik, for example, right? And other people who just say, sometimes nicely, sometimes more provocative, more data is dead, right? But going to value, business value.
Yeah.
And my 2 questions for you there is, first, how did you get actually into this influencer? Because I don't think you woke up one day, oh, I'm going to be an influencer. So I have a feeling there was something crucial. And second, who is your your influencer? Who influences the influencer?
That's a really good question. And you're totally right. I never went on a journey to, in fact, I really haven't considered myself as an influencer. Yeah, you referred to it a couple of times.
You're not on TikTok yet.
Yeah, I'm on TikTok. I mean, working on it. My dance moves aren't what they used to be. So, maybe not for me. Maybe after a few drinks, the dancing gets a bit better. But
Vegas.
So what started? So we started this business, as you saw, in 2018, and to do that, you had to get a voice out there and you had to get credibility. A small 3-man band at the beginning when there was just the 3 founders. Who are you? Are you doing something different? I just thought you're a contractor working here. What makes you special? Why should we use you over someone else? So I started, in fact, and it links onto the last question. The person that triggered probably one of my early posts that got the most number of views, which... and the comments on it and seeing how he did it probably it's shaped my approach for how I've done it in the future. And that was Greg Cucchiano, if I pronounce your name incorrectly, sorry.
We can link it in the description.
He works for Amazon and he did something about data types. I remember it very well. And it was, if you don't put the right data types, how poor the data could be, and you don't define you don't define a data type, date time, the timestamp of it, because time zones change at different points. If you don't have the locale or the actual the time zone it was recorded or that full timestamp, the data could be useless. And it was something that I had experience in working as an architect on a global ticketing system. And obviously, if you didn't have what country there was, it was going to be quite challenging. And also when I'd seen that people had set timestamps to servers and things to a particular time zone in America, it resonated with me. So I did the post on that, and then I reposted his one actually, and which I always promote. Always repost other people's stuff. Don't upcycle. Well, you can take or tag people is a good thing. I think a lot of people are trying to pass things off their own sometimes. But so after that, I saw how he always, anyone that commented, he always thanked them. He always said, "Thank you for your view." And he was consistent. He was always posting stuff out there, and at the time, I was always adding comments to it because those things I could add value. We spoke many times, and then my posts came before were very okay. I got to do 6 tips on this. I spend a lot of time making sure that I had it all covered, and I'd post it, I'd get it checked and everything. Those days are gone now. So
I was at the dinner with you, and you were like posting during the dinner, and it was like this long post. Wow.
So if I get something to trigger an idea at that time, it's the moment, and I will. Hence, maybe the typos in some of them I try and correct over time. But it's every time I see something that I can relate it to. Talk about the business part, or how that transfers onto technologies. It's it triggers a thought process, and it's not it's not all about technology now. Technology, you can get down in different arguments of this syntax here and that. I'm not there to know what Python library is more performance over a numpty or this. I can speak to the people that do understand that. I can get them to describe it to me, and I can articulate that to a business stakeholder. And so I don't need to. It's not my bag anymore. I used to love doing coding many, many years ago, but I like to play every now and then. But I realise I just like solving the problem. I like someone else to go and take
business problem, solving the problem. And so how you actually started 4 years ago, right?
Yeah. So, and Joe Reese with the other one that I just need to give him a call out as well. So
a great book, right?
Yeah, great book. Yeah, and I was fortunate enough for him to ask me just to technical review it and collaborate on it, and he did a fantastic job of that. But I only met him through. I'll move on off this. This is a funny story. So a few of my stories are funny. This is one. So on Greg. So Greg had done a post about what's it take to be a data engineer. And there was a big long list of skills. And I broke it down to 4 or 5. And I think I even put passion on there, or which is always a hot topic sometimes. But yeah, it was really enjoying that subject is something you need to look for. Or the ability to solve problems, I think it was another one. And that's you could You could boil it down. You can teach SQL, you can teach Python if they've got some coding skills. At least it's a foundation. So they were the key things. And Joe didn't answer the question, and I think, why is he not answering what I didn't know at the time. He was probably saving it for his book. And then he was on a podcast the night before, a LinkedIn live show. I thought, right, let me go and ask these questions. All right, one after another, I sent these questions in. He said, good question, Chris. Good question, Chris. You should join the show sometime, Chris. And then I got a direct message saying, do you want to join the show now? Now? It's 8 p.m., 9 p.m. on a Friday night. So it wasn't water I was drinking. And I thought, okay, what the heck? And did the show with him. And that led on to the book. That led on to doing the show regularly. We ended up working very collaboratively together.
But you started with the purpose of promoting the business, right?
Yes. So that was the key. Now I do because I do enjoy it to some degree. Maybe a bit too much sometimes. I should probably get on with real work. My business partners might say. But it's that balance, and I think it's defending certain subjects where I think that there is a misconception or blaming technology for failures in other areas. And if I have a view on it, I seem to go to town on it sometimes.
Question: a lot of our listeners are actually working with data engineers, analytics, and so I understand the value of posting on LinkedIn as a business owner or as a business person.
Yeah.
Do you see any value on LinkedIn, or LinkedIn seems to be kind of like what other platforms are for engineers, right? For data people, there is a lot of movement on LinkedIn. Do you see the value there for learning, or how would you, if you would be a data engineer or analytical engineer, would you do it?
Definitely, and I think it's looking for the right influence or the right influencers that give out that message. And I know there's Avery, I can't remember his surname, but he does a lot of. I think he's doing a 0 to 30 days of data science activities. Each day he's doing something, a new module, sharing the code. And I think the likes of himself. Ben Rogan, the Seattle data guy, puts out great content on YouTube all the time. Always backs it up with very well articulated.
Yeah, it's awesome.
He gets them out like he's like a machine. I can get out random posts with a bit of a rant and that, but it is much more structured. I bet his code is really neat. It's looking for the right audience and it's giving the right message. I'll translate that into the business talk as well. Is you need the right, and helping understand where that technology meets the business is going to make you a better data engineer because you know why you're doing it. It's not, if someone says to you, oh, by the way, you can't go and do a hand-coded PySpark data pipeline running it in that Kubernetes. I know it might be really cool for you to do and it might be really fun, but it's going to cost me too much money. I've got this tool here that does it. So, and they can understand, okay, well, and I don't think now that's taken away your role. No, you look to see where you add value with that data, where you look at.
So is it fair to say that people in data engineering, analytical engineering focus too much on the tools and features, and you actually encouraging them to learn more about how you can add the business value, understand what the business needs?
I think so, and I think we can talk about my career and how it went
get
into
there.
it. Yeah, but
Chacho has one question about the
it's very much linked to that. So I started as a business and went back to technology, and that was when the world shadow IT meant you lived in the middle of it, especially BI. And then was that your question about that one? Was it? No. So I think if technologists can understand business context more and why they're doing it, and I think that can come from more of a collaborative community approach within the data structure, or even the company structure that is data centric. The world, the data world will be a better place, as I like to think.
Yeah, it will be. Yeah. My question is as an influencer, you keep questioning the status quo, you keep starting discussions on LinkedIn, etc. And out of nowhere, you picked up data modeling, get it back and Why? What's the motivation?
Yeah, good. Yeah, a good question. It was a bit of a rant, and I think it was a bit of a tongue in cheek when I did it, and it was another like modern data stack is dead, and the reason why it's dead because there's no data modeling. It's not the modern data stack's fault you didn't have data modeling, because we did that years ago. Just because in the big data bubble you put everything on schema on read and stuck it in a data lake and you forgot to model, it's not my fault. You know, so don't blame me and don't blame the modern data stack for it. So, you know, if you do it properly, and I think that's why I started, I think modern data stack 2.0, and I mentioned was because, you know, if you're gonna want to write it off and go and get a new budget for it, don't just say, you know, we're going to call it postmodern data stack or some semantic version of data warehouse.
Semantic layer.
Yeah. Let's just call it, okay, it's the next version, it's next iteration, let's call it 2.0. If you've had a few failed attempts, call it version 10.3.
Whatever.
Because it feels like a really
right?
stable version. It was for Oracle, 10.3.2, patch 2 was very good, you know.
Yeah, something like Microsoft version 25.
Yeah, well, in fact, that may be a better way of doing it. So this is modern data stack, you know, this year, and it doesn't need to be made of 15,000 pieces, you know, and you need to simplify back to what's right for your company at that right time.
Reach to us, right?
Yeah, I know, exactly. This is where we met in Vegas discussing this exact thing, is that it doesn't need to be that complicated.
So like, if I would, you know, kind of like summarize your life as an influencer, right?
Yeah.
So you start because you started a company.
Yeah.
You wanted to be heard. Then it turned into, hey, I actually have added value there.
Yeah.
I see patterns that people don't see because they've been here for 2 days and I've been here for 2 weeks, right?
Yeah.
And
Slightly more than 2 weeks now, but 2.5.
2.5. But what I love, you know, is kind of like your advice to everybody who's working in data. Like, don't learn only about, you know, like the features and technology, but learn how you can add a business value, talk to people inside of the company, and always try to add a business value. Is that pretty much?
Yeah, 100%. I think that go back to that community thing. I think if you embed a data scientist in the business and get them to work there and get them to learn that helps them understand what they're doing. So you cannot work in isolation and make a data strategy with just the technology people. What you'll do is you'll build the best, shiniest, fastest data pipeline in the world that will deliver the data in the wrong way without the right quality than not how the consumer wanted it. And then you fail.
That's the whole discussion between waterfall, agile, between enterprise service bus, data mesh, data fabric.
Yeah.
You want to
There's one more thing, like the history doesn't repeat itself, it just rhymes.
Yeah.
And that's like what I see in your posts is that you are trying to help people not to repeat the history, repeat the issues, etc.
Which is actually interesting because like your life, right?
Yeah.
You've been around, right?
Yeah.
Like I just there are a couple of companies. So you went through giants like BMW, actually 2 times if I'm correct, right?
A couple times, yeah.
And then you've been through Shell.
Yeah.
You've been through Sainsbury.
Yeah.
But your original home.
Yeah.
Wait for it.
Was Cognos.
Yes.
But not Cognos from IBM.
It was when Cognos was good.
It was cool Cognos,
Yeah,
right?
it was.
So we were discussing before, we were like, well, can you describe, with the history rhymes, what was the world before? And then how did it change?
Yeah.
And how it's now. And it's like, if you don't read Chris's LinkedIn post and blog posts on the late data, I actually encourage you some pretty good blog posts, like 2, No, not really good.
Yeah, the post more, not blogs as much, but yeah. So where I started, it was at Cognos and pre-IBM. And I went in there with an accounts focus, admin, and not in IT. And they had all their training courses. When they had spaces on them, they wanted to fill it to make it look like it was popular. So I went down. I went on the courses. And before long, I'd completed every certification on each of their products. I was teaching them how to configure their products by hacking their INI files and doing scripts to go and reset the training machines. And I think I did their own data warehouse in a shadow IT aspect, actually. But the finance director said, well, what's this guy here doing on this thing? It's your PowerPlay product that you're using with our own data. What, that's our own data? This is before we had much more security in place because I got it in a flat file. But they were the old days. Not good, but not secure, but good. So that started on my movement from business to actually the technology, because I always worked either for the finance director, the service director. I think.
And were you a business analyst? Or?
I would say I was a business analyst, or I think the IT called me a pain in the arse.
Yeah. So is the business analyst the new power user? Is it a citizen user or analytical engineers?
I think so. The business analyst I was then was you just knew Excel quite well, and you sat in the business, you understood that, and maybe you talked to the IT department to say I need this extract to be changed, and you
can survive all the meetings, and there was less meetings back in those days, but you had to go into the office more.
So there was from that understanding. And this is why I do love OLAP and hierarchies. It's a bit sad now, but it's just for me it was always a way about the data modeling link. It was always I just thought of data in relationships and structures and in hierarchies and in aggregations, because that's what I did from the age of 19, 20. And then I understood why I was doing that, because either I understood accounts from a book structure of hierarchies of the ledgers and how that did a double entry bookkeeping. I understood it from a trading perspective, how many people you're doing on courses. So each one of those roles, when I was more like shadow IT, I was able to cross that boundary and then gradually move over into architecture roles or ETL developer, front end developer. And I think what I had the ability to be able to do then, which is much harder nowadays, is there wasn't so many different specialisms. I was able to learn databases, Oracle DBA, SQL Server, understood it quite well. Move on. I could do ETL tools, Informatica, Data Stage, Power, a data manager or decision stream, I think it was originally called, Synapse. I understood those ETL technologies, and then understood a visualization tool. And that's all you really needed to be able to do then. And then you had a bit of quality in there, you had orchestration in there, you had lineage in there, you had a good data model in there, all the things that people seem to have forgotten that existed back in the early days of data warehousing. But it was limited to very few companies. It was the likes of, as you saw, the Shells, the BMWs that had the budget to go and invest in that sort of infrastructure.
So do you think we are now going through the curve, like you said, everything was there, right? But only limited to a couple of companies.
Yeah.
Now we went through the Cambrian explosion. Every feature became a company funded by billions of dollars. Do you think that we are slowly rhyming, like coming back to, hey, we need to tie it together so people can actually focus on business value? Because you keep repeating in a good way what I hear, shadow IT. It was not perfect, but we were shadow IT, so I was able to move forward. Technology and business skills, right? Yeah. So for some years, we've been, like when people ask, what is your typical user? We would say, well, people who were previously business analysts, now, we give them the power to actually have all the data, and they work together on the first iteration in a secure environment, and then bring specialists, right?
I see that role in the current world is being that product owner. That product owner needs to be that sort of mixed blend of understanding enough technical knowledge to know when they're being pull the wool over someone's eyes, or they're not the developers aren't being maybe as honest as they should. To understand enough and to articulate the requirements in a way that the technologists can deliver it, but also to make sure it's aligned to the business value and the features that are. And I think this is where it becomes more complicated. Is in a very large organization, you can have many product owners. It's how you get all those product owners working towards the same goal. The same objective, which was, I think, a post I did the other day. I think what happened during that, the where we did have it all, and it was limited to the larger organisations. We had the big data era, And that brought it increased the data engineers tenfold.
And there was a Hadoop, right?
Yeah, Hadoop, yeah. And, Mapr, Cloudera, Hortonworks, the whole Apache suite, and then the enterprise versions of it. And that's now created a big influx of new data engineers that had never seen that previous world, and probably outnumbering that the voice of those people. And it was, you guys, you don't know what you're doing. It's all gold. It's all gold.
It's a different world now.
Yeah, exactly. You don't know. You dinosaurs.
Just put in Hadoop. Yeah.
And we took it on the chin for a bit. And I still worked. I never went hands on that, but I did data strategies where that the Hadoop was part of it. Were they successful? No, they weren't. But you had
data swamps.
Yeah, and you had to have that tick box. I mean, if you told the board at that time, oh, by the way, we're just going to go and upgrade the data warehouse we've got on premise, and they said, what? You're not going to go Hadoop? You're crazy, and you'll be sacked.
Which is actually interesting. It's like Hadoop is one of the first technologies that you don't see, which is like totally somewhere.
Yeah.
Which actually got invited into the boardrooms of large companies. Yeah. How did that happen? Sorry about the segue.
No, but that's a really good thing. And this is what I'm trying to prevent with this next sort of postmodern data stack thing is, all right, so you need to be able to sell something at the board level. And if there's a nice Gartner hype about it, that's the way you're going, when you need to do this to be successful, everyone's going to buy into it.
Yeah. So is it not data mesh because it's not Gartner, so it's data fabric?
Yeah, and well, we can touch on data fabric and data mesh and my views on that as well, because again, they're buzzwords that are not a product, not a technology. It's an approach that can be abused and means that you're just hiding the fact that you've just made a mess.
I'll be controversial a little bit here. Yeah. Isn't something like that needed?
Yes, it is. But I think what needs to be is there needs to be some clear guidelines of exactly how it's implemented. And I think there's that bring back data modeling piece as well. So, there's a big community now that are all coming together that are like-minded. I've had so many individual calls recently with some just people I've just added comments and they've added some things, and some of them made me laugh. Some of them have been entertaining, and from that, there is that we're getting that voice about data modeling, and I think the highlighting the modern data stack is dead, or trying to say it is and blame it on data modeling is now given a reason to say, right, the modern data stack isn't dead. You forgot to add data modeling and a couple of other things. Let's look to see how we did it before. Let's look to see how it needs to change by introducing a data vault approach, a data mesh or data fabric approach as well. But if you do that, don't have all of the correct controls in place to understand when you centralize and when you decentralize. And one of the problems we did with the modern data stack is we decentralized too much.
The problem
so we gave
with that,
everyone control, and then it was just a big mess because you didn't know who controlled what, and there was no common foundations.
So, a question for you: the problem with this is kind of like the board, like. They don't know technology. They want to know. They don't have time, right?
Yeah.
I was actually having a breakfast today with one of our investors who is like very technological, who is like unicorn status, grows like fast, But he's like, I asked him like how come we are not more seen on the board level, right? At your company, because like it runs on Kibula, right?
Yeah.
He's like, why should you be, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, well, Hadoop was on the board level, right?
Yeah.
We're like, yeah, but it got abused, right?
Yeah.
And that's my point is like, yeah, everything gets abused on the board level, right? People hide behind it. But doesn't it move the whole trend forward? So like you had Hadoop, you have big data, you have data democratization. Yeah. Now you have data mesh, right? Like, so what is the right balance, and who should be guardkeeper of that balance?
It's a very good question again. And we haven't been prepared for all these ones. Those
are not prepared.
He's throwing some curveballs in here as well. No, and I think it's getting a thread that joins up all of those different things to find out what's relevant. And I think this is not a pitch what we're doing, but we do a lot of these maturity assessments, which each of those maturity assessments is focused on a different pillar of your organization. So that could be your data delivery approach. It could be your data security approach. It could be your data insight, your AI/ML, your FinOps approach, or your data ops approach. So each of them will give a different lens, and I think by companies looking to see, okay, look, this is the de facto capabilities that are needed, and it is all standard stuff. It is, a lot of it is cookie cutter requirements for security, IP whitelisting, or role based access control, or how you do those things. And if you say, okay, we need to do these, we need this capability to be able to deliver the business value. If you're able to make sure you're always on ahead of the game, or in each of those capabilities. So I promote, rather than it being a big wave every now and then, right, we're going to do this rechange, reorg, we have a whole change direction. Make it a long-term program, okay? If this is a 4-year program, you don't get the budget for it, but it's a 4-year iterative cycle, that what you do is every quarter, every 6 months, you have a really transparent conversation. What's worked well, what hasn't worked well, how are we doing before this thing, and then mapping it to that, and then optimizing where it's necessary, and then continuously evolving, that it's not ever a big bang. Because I think it was a conversation we had the other night about just steady growth.
Yeah.
Or ups and downs, and the ups and downs, you may achieve certain targets and anything, but it's not sustainable. So
even with the big growth, steady, you have smaller ups and downs. Right?
Yeah, true. I mean, it's never as linear as that.
That's where I see the issue with selling something like this.
Yeah,
because if you come to the board and say, "Oh, we're gonna have a 2-year long program," it's gonna have some ups and downs.
Yeah,
but then they're gonna and so somebody comes with, "Oh, we have a new Hadoop. It's gonna solve this," right?
So I think this goes back to that whole data ops and bimodal development approach that you.
I was gonna just touch bimodal by Gartner.
So it was something before data ops about. There was that bimodal development, which I think really has fed into that data ops manifesto, and going back to that CDO or CTO role that needs to survive. You need a 100-day strategy. All right, you need to achieve. You got to make sure you've done that. Otherwise, you're out the door. Your probation's out. You've got and no one wants to rehire someone that's lost. That's gone after 3 months. So you need to be reactive, but also you need to be making sure you're providing that longevity. Because if you succeed the 100 days, you've got a 3-year tenure as an LTIP or something to make you want to make that company succeed.
Really?
Yeah, exactly. So. So I think having that bimodal approach, but what you always need to do, any tactical thing you do needs to either introduce some value or reusability or validation of an assumption or a hypothesis.
Yep.
Right.
You drive to the business goal of the company, right?
Exactly.
This is actually very interesting, and for those of you who don't know what we are talking about, because Gartner introduced a couple of years ago the bimodal approach. So they were saying that you need to be technical and business skills, right? And then they actually introduced the maturity levels, right? And so I find this actually very interesting that we are both kind of Gartner, right?
Yeah.
But then common thread in all of those is a Gartner hype cycle.
Yeah.
And love it or loathe it, people in large corporations always come back to Gartner. Right?
Yeah, and Forrester as well is the other one that's used. And that is, and that's kind of the way of the world. And I think the key to it is not to get to read between the lines sometimes, because if you look at some of the Gartner quadrants and you see who's right at the top, we know that for example Microsoft is not the best at everything out there, but it scores very, very well. And
why is that?
I don't. Later on we'll cover that one. We'll take that one off topic in the off cut. So it is, and it's like the old days of no one got fired for buying IBM.
Yeah.
So if you're an enterprise, the Barclays, the large corporations, the Shells and things like that.
NatWest.
You're not going to be able to get it through the sale if you're not able to show it, where it is on the Gartner. And if it's not in the leading one, show why you think it is going to be leading, why you get that competitive advantage. And I think, if you look, the early adopters that went for Snowflake or ThoughtSpot, and to see their movement, or Atlan, another one as well, to see, if you bought in early and you saw the vision or saw where that was actually going to be the direction that the data world was going, you've got one step ahead, and also you get in earlier, you can help shape that product so it works how you see it, and the likes of Calibras and things like that. By the time you get, it is how it is then, and it's going to be. You pay the customization, no problem. I think any board level, use trusted advisors. Use people that you feel that are. Obviously, like us, or something. But that's
why you post on LinkedIn, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, or anyone else.
Trusted advisor.
He's trusted advisor. Yeah, and if you get that validation of that, and I used to use this cut through the vendor hype, and everyone, even the ones we work with, they all have their hype factor, and they have to. And
you have to, because otherwise you're not going to.
You need to don't stand out, but. I think what I'd like to say is that I'm a technologist first, a salesperson second. I can't push something I don't believe in as a product that I don't technology believe in the roadmap, and that's that's changed with who we work with, AI and ML. I won't say no because it's not official, but we'll be swapping from one to another in that space because
that's the sign of the evolving ecosystem, right? But I have a feeling that we are a little bit oppressing Chocho because we are both.
He was talking too much.
I'm the only not C-level in the room, so.
You actually he has a very interesting history because he's been working for Avast. He's been working on their big data and lakes and Hadoop, and he was actually the first person, in this such a large corporation who actually tested Snowflake many years ago. So like you were on the other receiving end, right? So like, how do you see that? Hype / sustained growth and
like. The hype will last forever. We will get another and another, one after another. And I think that the only thing how to move forward is to try to be aligned with the objectives. Like that's the only point in there.
Yes.
But back in that days, I was just a technologist looking at the performance, benchmarks, everything, and just throwing everything away. Dreaming of Snowflake because it was in the early days. Before that, we were playing with Hadoop. It was like a small baby with all its illnesses, etc. It was more dying than living. And
he's talking about Hadoop and Snowflake, right?
That was Hadoop. Then we have parallelized Postgres, and we're playing with this. And what I see again right now is that the data engineer mostly wants to have at least one toy in the work. Like that's we just cannot. Push them all to just do the job. The developer, the people are developers. Like I think that the listeners are also with me. Like you need some toys at your work. Maybe it could be the CI/CD pipeline, which is sort of custom hacked or whatever. But you need something to be proud of, not just buying everything. And
I totally agree, and I think I've posted this before about developers are developers because they want to develop. Otherwise they're just integrators, and I think how you create that environment that you mentioned there is. You need to have either an R&D capability, a hackathon piece or something where there is some of these ideas that you're putting in place and carve out some time for them to do that.
It must not be a new tool. It could be just combination of the current tools.
You're true. But what I've seen is where it goes the wrong way is people get emotionally attached to what they built. Okay, so then they go, "Well, I've built this really great thing." They're not a Netflix company. They're not a Airbnb. They're not going to be able to open source this thing and later on go and make an enterprise version and become billionaires. It's just not going to happen for those ones. So it's creating an environment that goes, look, you have to build your own integration here, or you have to maybe put your own Python in, or do your own algorithm in. And it's I think my architecture hat in the days as well is you have I've referred to it as a special source, your USP of your stack. So you'll have to have you're not going to write your own CRM. You're not going to write your own billing system.
Oh, people try to.
Oh, and sure, those developers had great fun and loads of pizzas and drinks. I mean, God, look at this! I've just optimized this and got the cost down on this SQL. And and in their mind, they have achieved something. They succeeded, but it's not linked to the business objective or making the company more. So they need to focus on that USP thing, create an environment that gives the engineers that exposure. That's the challenge. And
are you familiar with Simon Wardley? Simon Wardley is another guy from that strange part of Europe, which is divided by channel from the Europe.
England,
actually. Oh yeah.
I go there occasionally.
He's great. He is a technologist who became CEO 20 years ago, and then he was lost in. So he was looking for some tools, and everything BCG measure was like, So he kind of put things together, and he developed Simon Wardley mapping, which is a very interesting concept, which I think you will love. But he talks about 4 steps of evolution of everything, right? So first, it's kind of like, we found that it can do that, Hadoop, right? Then there is a second stage where people want to develop everything. Yeah. Right. Only experts, right, can do that. Develop their own CRM. And if you like especially in Czech, if you look 15 years ago, there was so many CRMs, there was so many PHP frameworks, right? Oh, developers, right? But then there is a third stage, which is productization.
Yes.
And then there's a fourth stage, which is platformization, and putting things together so they become utility.
Yeah.
And so everything you describe, before, through, I kind of have this picture how things go through.
And just repeats.
Yeah. It repeats in different, once you go to utility, then something, boom, new, and it goes again.
I think each time we solve another layer of that platform complexity, there's the next layer that needs to be developed that sits on top of it. And I think where you've spot on this one is before it was the infrastructure, we sorted that out. Then after that, we put the PaaS or the database as a service. Then we put the application on top of that. I think now that we're doing is building data apps sitting on top of all of that, and that's where the coding still happens because that's the icing on it. And soon there'll probably be some low-code tools that are so good that it's much easier. I think Streamlit being the one that.
I think there already are some.
Oh, okay,
But this leads me to you have a blog post on your website, which talks about cloud becomes the operating system of the enterprise, and then you have the I'm gonna quote.
These are old blogs, by the way.
Simplified, more insights platform. We have 20 different tools with Snowflake. I'm gonna link that in the description. And then you have a separated data ops and separated ETL, separated data governance, security. And I want to touch on the Snowflake later on because it's in the center of that picture. I'll just have it here, right? But can you talk a little bit more about the operating system, because that's
that was a secret sauce.
That's kind of one of our big topics, right?
So and also when I saw the simplified picture now, I think, oh dear, that was a little while ago. Yeah, but anyway, we'll come on to that one, and I think I might have to update that blog soon. But so I think the
operationalization.
Yes, operationalization. It's my language as well.
So.
We talked about this on the way here, walking here, was data warehouses were the end of the chain before, so they didn't have DR. They didn't have the same level of controls over them that you do on your billing system or part of your core application. And what's evolved over time is we've now created an environment where we do know real-time decisioning, so that algorithm that's being driven and trained off the data that's actually in the data warehouse, or maybe it has to do a lookup to find out the latest streaming information that's come in as well to maybe affect a targeted buying campaign or something of someone that's actually on the web journey still. So, it's become core and intrinsic to the business. And the whole DevOps into data ops, and I think the whole ML ops, and I think we call it operation ops. It's moving into the data and application world is becoming a bigger overlap now. So, and I think that's good in some aspects. It creates some challenges as well, but I think the good things is it's always been, the source providers and the data warehouse, and then the data quality was bad. It's a data warehouse fault. No, it's a source system. You collected it. You didn't actually put the I call it the data quality firewall in place there. So you haven't. If you let rubbish in, rubbish is going to get into your warehouse. So preventing it at the point of inception, where it actually gets entered into your system, is the best place to put those things. But because those two teams don't work, they're down the hall. We just send them flat files.
Them.
Yeah. I've given them API contracts.
Don't open
That's
the red
all they
door.
need. That's it. And they have all of that. They wrote the application. They know what the attributes are for, and we end up having to recatalog it all when it goes into the data warehouse and go and do it all again. In theory, you should have already done it when you built the source system, so it should already be there. Or the knowledge should be theory. Yeah. I know I live in this perfect world now. I know, but if not, the business knowledge should still be there to allow that, and to go and ask them to go and do it. And the data thing, it's not our problem. The rest of it is really, if we are one company and we all want to succeed on that main objective of us getting a company bonus and not going bankrupt as a company now, maybe. So it's everyone's. I think someone else put it is whose responsibility is data quality in the company. Everyone's. It's not the data warehouse. It is everyone. And who owns the data strategy? Is it technology and business? No, it's the data community. It's everyone. And I think the more we start thinking in that way, and more that barrier of IT and business becomes less defined, and it's happening because the technologies are bringing it together, because we have to work. So, I'm not sure. Did I answer the question? I'll just ramble for a while.
No. You didn't answer the question, but you actually, posted some very interesting, segues, and we're gonna get there.
Yeah. So that was the first one. Yeah, it's the simplified bit. Yeah.
I have a picture in my head, which I'm gonna post there, from the original CEO of Looker, right?
Yeah.
Where he actually presented three eras of data stacks, right, or data infrastructure, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
The first one was your Cognos world, right?
Yes.
It was like very one piece, everything was there, only big companies, not the democratized.
Yeah.
Then there's a second era, cloud.
Yeah.
Right. And the more you could call it modern data stack, you call it cloud because it was not the word back here. But everything is small pieces. Every feature has a small product, and you can use anything you want if you know how to do it, and if you have the knowledge, DevOps and etc. Which again becomes a bottleneck because like the business analysts don't want to do it, right? And then he claims, and this was our modern data stack world for last 6 years, and then he coined the third era. Well, there was an actual operating system on top of that, which actually operated all of those small pieces together, and so it was accessible for the business user, with quotes business user. I don't mean your secretary, but people in the business, right? So what seems to me that you are describing with your blog post is kind of like, and I know it's like a year or two older, right? But like you were describing, you were living in the second era. And you were like describing, hey, we should move to the third era.
Yeah.
What is your view on that now?
So that third era.
With more of the use cases that are in modern data warehouse, like, such as Streamlit apps, etc. Right?
Yeah. So I think there's a few areas that I've seen that are in this next era, the focus. Let's call it modern data 2.0, or the next iteration, or refinement, hardening of modern data stack. And there were the things we touched on. So data modeling, we've covered that. I think observability, understanding what it is, the lineage, observability. I think it adds.
What is observability for you?
Yeah, good. So it's what I refer to as old-fashioned audit, logging, and monitoring.
Yeah.
So
of every job.
Data, and then you give it a shiny name. It's observability. But I think if you drill down into what that audit, logging, and monitoring now combines, so the audit now is the combination of the audit from the orchestration, from the jobs it's run, from the underlying. So now it's
machine learning.
It's much, the audit information crosses many of them.
How much it costs per job, per pipeline.
Yeah, exactly. And then you got the logging part, which we say gets probably the cost aspect.
Who consumes this? Who consumes that?
Yeah, exactly. And
but also security, right?
So you got all that, and then the monitoring of who's using that log information to see and the audit information to monitor what's activities and look at optimizations, areas of maybe security use that shouldn't be performed, which now goes into SIMs and things like that. So I think observability can be start small and grow big. I suggest starting small and growing it through, or growing it larger, and I think it leads on to that FinOps aspect as well. Yeah. So we all need to know, we all want to know like when a job run failed or the rest of it, but that whole cost lens is something that, again, if you try and retrofit it and you go and build a nice big stack, you've given everyone access, you've given people access to go and self-serve, they've gone and spun up the largest warehouses or not worried about resume rates and costs. And before you know it, they've gone for all the credits, you ask for more, and you think, well, who's going to pay for what you've used? Oh, I didn't use them. Oh, yeah, you did. But you can't, you've given the one warehouse is used by so many people, you don't know which department's using it. So it's very hard to go and ask the money later on.
But I think like in my view, at least, this aspect, the observability or governance should be first observed governance and enforced governance. And it should be part of that platform, right?
So, and I think that you use the word force, which is I think the old approach, which governance is there for a reason, and you do need
especially in large enterprise, right?
And you do need to enforce it. So but you try and get a governance project across the line when in a very dictatorship, separate project sort of, and not embedded in it. I think the way of getting governance projects to be successful is you need to instill the values of that into each of the teams, maybe as an advisory role that's having someone with that governance sort of lens, and you've got to make it easier for them. Yeah. So you've got to see what the pain points of these teams that are there. Saying, right, so what's going on? I want to do this release. I have to go and fill this thing in then, and then after that, I've got to do a process. I can take that away from you. Right. So if we did this and that catalog went off and did a notification, with that'd be great. Yeah, I'll buy into it. And now you've got a supporter to take that.
It's always about pains, right?
Yeah,
individual
it's all about, and that's why that community thing is so important, because if you create an environment where everyone is open and able to share what their pain points are, and remove any emotional attachment of shiny tool syndrome or I've used this, so that's all I ever know, and realize that they can add value in other areas. I think, why am I so emotionally attached to this thing here? Because I'm talking about data quality more. I can add value in the data quality aspect. It's not all about just knowing this one technology. And I think anyone that's out there, but to my career thing is whatever I did, I always left the company. If I was at the company, if I was there and they needed me for the business knowledge and I wasn't learning anything anymore myself, I'd move on. So I'd stay somewhere long enough that I either learned a new technology or learned a new business to the point that I knew it well enough that now they wanted me for my business knowledge that was their business. And then it's time for me to move.
This is actually a very interesting aspect, like we all love technology and architecture, right? But you touch on the community, on the business perspective, right? So some of the most successful projects we've seen were not only using technology, preferably our technology, but
paper and pen.
Yeah, paper, pen. But where they actually achieved that community aspect of sharing and learning data, right? And it's hard, right? So what would be your top 3 tips how to do it correctly? What would be your top 3, hey, no, let's not do this?
I think so. Top 3 tips is definitely get some foundational pieces in place before you start trying to and I think that foundational pieces does need to have that FinOps MVP one. It needs to have I'd say it needs to have that data ops methodology as part of that. The team way of working as another one, and I think that data modeling approach, which is part of that team way of working. I think if those 3 or 4 pieces, if you get that upfront as an MVP, and you get that working to deliver a business pain point, right? And build it on top of that, and use that business pain point to solve or to build out the MVP of that. And then after that, you go look at the next business problem. And what you do, that community of that first business department, you've got to solve their problem. They're now your champion, right? So you say, right, okay, well, I want a bit of that, and another department. So you get more of a turnout for it. You don't have it as a broadcasting one way. This is a, hey guys, at a senior person, right? Yeah, this is what we're planning on doing. This is a 3-year plan, 3-month plan, 6-month plan, 9-month plan. We're looking at this. We may be looking to replace Hadoop because it's end of life and it's costing us too much money. Now the developers that are thinking, oh, they're taking my jobs, but we're going to move them. Oh, I know now I'm going to be moving on to this later. So they're bought into it. There's transparency because they know why it's happening. And also you go and speak to the business departments that come along and say, currently this is our challenge we've got. Maybe have like a brown bag sessions or a thing is like either how one department solves something or another department saying we have this problem. And
just lunch and learn, right?
You're then helping each other. You create that community thing. And another thing it really helps with is budgets and things like that, because whenever you want to build something that's foundational, the first team that goes in normally bears the brunt of it, and they don't. Well, why am I paying for this orchestration, logging, malarkey, observability stuff? Because I don't need that. I've only got this one bit here. Yeah, but you will need it later. But I don't need it now. So for them to go and invest in that, you've got to find that first stakeholder that's going to. Then after that, you see that the next one that comes in is, I've benefited from this great orchestration piece that stakeholder one done. I don't mind paying for the next version of that to upgrade it, to add my things to it as well. That's when the whole product owner comes into the place, because he's understanding that roadmap, which is a good architectural advice. I think that comes into that whole way of working. If you have a good structure, and some good foundations, and have a nice roadmap that's iteratively adding value, you'll gradually be more value.
It all comes back to the value.
Oh, yeah.
We started to talk about, in the beginning of podcast. Now we are almost, getting towards the end. Don't worry. But, it always comes to business outcome. So my question is it sounds very nice. Everybody will sign there. If you talk to Ethan Aaron, right, he's kind of, let's be dashboard driven. Why, Aaron? Oh, because you can show the value, right? But I'm you come to the company. What is your advice for, like other companies or people in the business? Everybody will sign that. Oh yeah, we understand you need to have business value. How do you calculate it? How do you map it? How do you get it?
Let me jump in. You are doing the assessments, like the maturity assessment of the companies. Are there any patterns you see, or do the companies differ by their maturity, like the big phases of maturity, like starting or using or being?
I think there's commonality in the smaller companies are less mature in some of the security and process aspects and governance aspect, but they're more mature in the ability to react, make change. And then the larger companies, it's vice versa. I think, and I found what I'm doing is I'm advising the smaller companies what some of the things the bigger companies do, and advise the bigger companies something that's small, and it's finding that sweet spot. And there's a different team structure for each of those. So it's horses for courses, a different approach.
But how do you, I'll come back to that question.
Yeah, because I've forgotten it.
How, when you come to the project, right?
Yes,
how do you define the business outcome value? And how do you map it and show in the beginning, in the middle, and end of the project, hey, this is the business value we created together?
So, it's a very hard one to measure, but you need to actually provide. So value means something to every different.
It's coffee. Don't worry.
Every different part of the business is going to have a different meaning on value, and something that I think there's a post I'm doing a collaboration on. I think it's called the KPIs of KPIs. It was a comment I did on Ron. I can't remember your surname, but you can probably see it on one of the posts I did recently. It's about what metrics are the right metrics to drive your business. And I'll talk about how I've seen this from LEIT's perspective of how we've been building is we've defined our company strategy from many segments, so from a company, from a people, from a product, and from a financial perspective of so each of those different lenses. If I set some metrics on each of those individually, are they all collectively working together? And I think that so that leads back to value. So the ones that add the most value are actually the ones that overlap all the most because they're driving everything. And I think that's what. And that's what companies need to work out themselves is what is, and
that's a great theory.
Yeah.
But again, you come day one to the project.
Yeah.
You understand that you need to drive business outcomes.
Get out my perfect
How do
world.
you find them?
So it's back to that bimodal sort of approach. You go and look at what the biggest pain point is. Then low hanging fruit, the quickest, easiest thing to buy your time to work out what the best thing to do is. So first of all, you need something, so you need time to assess the situation. And if you ever start an organisation, and at that more senior level, is you've now inherited a team. They may not want you being that job. They may have thought they wanted that job. And I've been in that situation before as well. So you need to understand who's your allies, who knows. Yeah, they've all got the right knowledge, all the politics. And then once you've got through all the politics, then after that you have to see what each of them drives each of them or motivates each of them to come up with something. I've called it a goal, a thread. I'm using this from one of Sonia, who helps coaches. A thread that's going to link each of these different teams and provide something that brings them all together. And then you stop thinking. They're not stop thinking of different silos. They're thinking collectively of what we all need to succeed. And
is it linked to company corporate objectives or?
Yes. So this post that will come out is exactly that. So if a company it's on the board or something like that,
they publish it in their
exactly. Everything should be linked to that, but linking it, I really would be interested to see how many. For a company that has that strategy defined, you look at all the metrics that are out there that are on dashboards all over their business, and then look to see how many of those dashboards actually link back and link back to what that company strategy is. And the ones that aren't, why have you got them? Because it's not linear. Or are those ones missing on your company strategy? Is your strategy now missing things that are really important?
Yeah. Well, so it's strategy, business initiatives, and then action.
So it's that top-down, bottom-up approach, I think, Zini, because you can never lead a data strategy just from the top down. It needs to be driven, and maybe the roadmap from setting out, but it needs to come up from a what problems what's there at the moment and how to solve it.
It doesn't matter if you are a salesperson or data person. You need to do good sales process and key account management. Have your medic, process.
Yeah.
Because even if you are what I hear, a data engineer or data person who wants to do a successful project, you need to profile your organization and customer, right?
Yeah, very good point. And it's understanding what motivates them, what their characters are, and what ultimately you need to do to get the collective good, and sometimes you need to make compromises. I remember a really tough interview question we gave. I refer to it as the Kobayashi interview thing. It's the Star Trek one where it's the unwinnable situation. So I created an unwinnable sort of like scenario which actually existed in the company, like two polar opposite stakeholders that wanted totally separate things. And everyone that we'd given the problem to had gone, no, I can't do it, and not come up with not give me the answer, it can't be done, sort of thing, just trying to design something which never have worked. And he said, well, because of that won't we? Oh, yeah. So the one that the guy that got the job, he was able to, I can't keep them both happy all the time. So I'm going to keep this one happy for a little bit. Then after that, I'll do a bit for him. Then I'll do a bit for him. Okay. Problem solved, and he was never going to win the battle in one go, but he'd survived long enough to keep
get
them
the
going.
permission to put them together.
Yeah,
this is really interesting. So Thank you for this. It is like really, I think a lot of times people focus too much on technology, too much on features, but every successful project is kind of like a project management and understanding the people aspect, right? So before we go to the last part of kind of like what are you doing in Czech, what is the future and stuff, I don't know how to show up, but I have one final question, kind of like, it's connected with, you said that like originally data warehouse was at the end.
Yes.
Now it's moved into the center.
Yeah.
We see it a lot of times, like Yash from UiPath, head of corporate, he's saying that kind of like automations like UiPath are point to point, whereas kind of like what we are doing, you are doing is kind of like using data warehouse for like multi end-to-end points or graph integration, right? And you love Snowflake, and Snowflake loves you.
Yes.
Why do you love Snowflake? That's actually his question.
And I mean, and well, you can ask it again if you want.
Please do.
So,
Who was first? You or Snowflake? Who started it?
Who's the?
Did you love first Snowflake or Snowflake you?
No, I think I love Snowflake before they loved me. I think it's definitely that way around. But now we love each other. So I saw it. I think someone described it as snake oil to me when it was like I saw the white paper. So I worked on the first implementation in the UK at Deliveroo. It's when I worked for a previous. SI integrator for Snowflake, the first one in Europe, didn't go very well. I realised 20% of nothing was nothing, and anyway, what was brilliant though, it exposed me or got me to view this white paper. I thought this looks too good to be true, and then when I played around with it, put it in Deliveroo, and it was replacing Redshift. You thought, okay, I can see why this is gonna take off. This is gonna be really big. And then once I actually, because I was a technology, I understood.
It was 2017, right?
It was. Yeah. So I was able to like, how is it doing this? And then once you realise that having that controlled ecosystem that everything comes in, it knows about it's that all that stuff we're talking about, optimization and cost optimization plans and index paths and all that fun that you had to really tune it, a really complex partitioning strategy that you'd have to probably know the access of the data coming, just all gone overnight. And I think, well, but I used to love doing that on a Friday night. Saturday I was, I can get the cost down on this query and think you've done, you think you're a legend because you've got a query down.
Obviously optimized, or you can still do that in some technology.
I don't get that. I get to play around PowerPoint now. So
try Synapse?
I don't know. I don't touch Synapse. I can draw it. That's about on a picture. I lost my chain of thought. What were we going?
Why you love Snowflake?
Oh yes. How could I forget it? So seeing how that simplicity, that pay-as-you-go model, and I think Redshift enabled Snowflake to exist because it had created that credit. It created that credit.
It's a sales strategy go-to market. It's just like excellent.
And so why I loved it so much is understanding how it worked and the seeing it, how it could just beat Teradata just hands down and have multiple environments, zero copy coding. What they're doing now with Snowpark and it just. And I think the zero copy cloning was something I understood from the technology of like redo logs and taking snapshots of where they are at a particular point in time, but then you have to keep the logs after. So I understood how it worked as a pointer to where the data was in point in time. And you realise it's really clever what they've done. It's that separation of two things and just holding it, just thinking everything just gets at it. And, that the whole moving to the taking on the Hadoop world and now taking on the machine learning piece as well and the data sharing piece. So I see it as go back to that value thing. Why am I going to bother trying to go and create some other mix together some other technologies? Okay, maybe it's a little bit more, but if you put the right monitoring in place and put some good controls in place, it doesn't cost much more. And if you anything could be used badly and cost more than it should, and I think that's the only reason people whenever I speak to them, why don't you use it? Oh, it's expensive.
No, if you the whole ROCE, return on capital employed, if you talk about people, but my question is what was your first that Friday night, right? You saw it and you were like, wow, and did you think this is gonna be just their warehouse, or this is gonna change the world? Or did you see the applications and
how far did I see it go? I saw. When I saw it first of all, I saw it take on the Hadoop world, but they never went for it for market, and because it was, what the variant did. I'm thinking, why would you ever need Hadoop now? But they didn't target that market straight away. So I saw
they tried to target it first, but then they found the Redshift.
Okay. So I didn't know that. So that was a go to market strategy. So I knew it could do both those pieces. The data sharing, I was probably that makes sense. Once you're on there. You're in the same area. It's just S3. Why wouldn't you be able to? Where I never saw it going, and it's taken it far, is the machine learning piece. I think the reason why I saw that is they were very friends with Databricks, and there's a clear line. They do this, they do that. They can live happily ever after.
Well, Databricks started to do Delta Lake, right?
Yeah, well, they had a little bit of.
I don't think they are friends anymore.
They're not. They don't return each other's calls anymore, and they don't play golf anymore together.
But there's a migration of people, which is Silicon Valley. But But so I sometimes when people ask me, like, well, the revolution and what you are describing. It's like Snowflake is what combustion engine, was 100 years ago.
Yeah.
You didn't understand it's going to be cars and planes, right?
Yeah. True. And we talked about those layers of what it's done. So what the cloud. In fact, let's thank Hadoop for something. So Hadoop gave us that, what became S3 is from a file structure perspective. I mean, they had Elasticsearch and anything like that, but that storage then became the foundational piece that allowed Benoit and Thierry to create Snowflake. Yep. And then once Snowflake created an environment that the whole ecosystem. We went to the conference at the Snowflake. You see how many vendors are. Their whole business, a lot of them, is my business. Our business has been built on top of that. So, and then, I think that the whole application thing, it's just another layer. How far that goes. I mean, if I knew, I'd be a millionaire or a billionaire because I'll be investing in it. Yeah. But
if you look like companies like MessageGears, right?
We are working very closely with MessageGears. So, it's one of the things we're doing is getting it to work with some of the social and Google Analytics information to drive off campaigns.
So do you think the next Salesforce is going to be written as the, application powered by application on Snowflake, which is going to use shared data?
I think so. I think you'll see ERP systems moving into it. You'll see CRM systems moving into it. You'll see defined contracts moving the data between them. That, for example, a new startup wants to go. I'm going to go. Let's call it Snowflake One. I know if I'm saying something that Snowflake's doing, I don't know they're doing it, so this cannot be breached or anything like that because I don't know they're doing it. But I can see it going that way. Is they'll create that whole ecosystem of predefined contracts that can mix and match. And maybe that's like they won't build it themselves. They'll get other vendors to come in and build those things there. I see that definitely as the future because then you're going straight to operate. And it creates that competitive advantage. You imagine
it creates the network, right?
You that whole FinOps or the Challenger Bank environment that was opened up. So now other smaller companies could then challenge the bigger banks. You imagine now that one-stop CRM, ERP, manufacturing, all done. All you got to do is so a large transformation. You can go and buy another company, rip out the whole stuff, press a new button. Now I've just saved however much operating costs by just moving it out in a one-stop shop. I know it will never be that easy, I'm sure. But how
does it kind of work in the enterprise architecture where they have tens of years invested in Teradata? They have like all these.
They have everything. They not just Teradata.
So one of our large clients is Asda in the UK, and they're doing exactly that. They're ripping out all that legacy Walmart and replacing it with everything new. It's a very, very large process. It can be done. It's not easy. The other company I did something similar was at WellPay. So they were carved out of RBS. We turned up there and it was nothing, no design. We got to build a new acquiring platform.
It's gonna
draw
be
it on a wall,
but still, they're gonna turn, like rip off the old oracles, whatever.
Yeah.
But is it gonna be just Snowflake, or is it gonna be Snowflake, BigQuery, or what about the whole Lakehouse?
Big Lake.
Yeah. So
I mean,
Big Lake, yeah.
Yeah, so so the players, so Lakehouse is what obviously Databricks came up with it. Well, that sort of term. So like Iceberg being supported now from Snowflake. So. And we'd always seen did you have the lake external or internal to Snowflake? And you'd seen originally it was all external, then after that you push internal. Now you got best of both worlds. You can do both. And I think what size company you are and whether you really need to have an external lakehouse to feed off other things that don't need to be driven off Snowflake if you want to have that mix and match and maybe not stickiness to a vendor. And you could always drive it off a central, call it a abstraction layer. It's an abstraction between the two things. If you design it properly, that could serve that purpose of the lake housing. With regards to technologies that are out there, I do think that so AWS with Redshift, they went Snowflake, there you go. Then after that, I reckon Azure will probably go But Google won't. Google won't. No, Google won't go away. They don't play nice, and there's some healthy competition for Snowflake, and it's no point being a one horse race. So
it's good for the environment.
It's good for the environment, and I do think over time there probably will be a clearer distinguish between which is better for one. I think if you've got old code, Snowflake is an easier migration to that. If you're starting from fresh, you don't have that burden.
We love Snowflake. We've been one of the first customers. We are one of the large clients. But like this is awesome. You've been here for an hour or something. We can
carry on for 10
hours, right?
So he's getting hot.
They turn on the fan and close the door. We are locked. But
we locked in. Yeah, we have a safe word to get out.
Yeah. But we have the third and last kind of like part, which I would like to briefly touch, unless you have some more questions.
That's all for me.
So this is kind of like, why here, why now? Why are you in Czech? What is late data doing in Czech? What is it outside of UK, by the way?
Yeah.
And what is the next, how did you call the question?
Next big thing.
Or
a dream.
Or the dream. Or my dream or the data world.
Not your dream.
Okay, good.
We don't want to go there.
Yeah, no, it's good because we'll have to record that afterwards in the outtakes. The reason I'm Prague, so I came here, I used to work for a company called For Finance. So that was my first business reason to be in Prague. I may have been to a stag do once before then. So I really did fall in love with the city, the architecture, the people. I mean,
Oh, thank you.
No. You have a great sense of humour. The Czechs. Us English are very lazy. My Czech is awful. That's why we're doing this in English today. And you don't mind speaking English first, and that's not always the same in Europe. And I thank you for being. Us English being so lazy, the
whole population of Czech is like 1/3 of London, so we have to speak.
So that's I've always had a close fondness with Czech from Prague from working here previously, and I have a business partner that I have been working with Liebo. You met him in another business that we've learned from. So we've talked some scars and battle scars from that together. And so I wanted to see UK's great, and you can only expand as much as you can in one location. We have a bit of a strategy of creating hubs in different locations, and to validate the need to validate the environment, we'll see what of a hub would be.
So are you here because people are cheaper? Or are you here because they are cheaper and good?
I suppose there's a factor of both. I think it's the good factor, the cheaper factor second. I mean, I think it's working at For Finance. I worked in Riga, I worked in Warsaw, I worked in Bucharest, I worked in Czech, and what I found is I'm an individual that people get on with or don't, and I think everyone liked me in Czech. I wasn't liked everywhere else. I don't know why.
Well, because you are very direct, and we love it. I think basically Czechs, Dutch people, people from Israel, and some British people.
Yeah, and I like trying to be one of those British people. So I think that was a perfect reason for it. But because this is the business we need to validate, we need to use data for our decisions of what we do. Data-driven consultancy company.
What data did you use?
We're using how many people registered for the event. So that's
interesting. You actually have an event tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
In our office in Kibula.
Yeah.
So please, it's gonna come after the event, but there's gonna be hopefully a recording of at least some part of the event.
There'll be some. The bits we can record will be there.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be awesome. Yeah. Let's watch it. But you originally, when we talked with Lucy, your expectation. What was your original expectation for the registered people, and how is it going now? 24 hours before.
Yeah. So we thought, and I need at least this to verification that there was enough interest in Prague for us to open an entity here. And I was thinking maybe 30, 40, 50 people. That would be good, and I'd be really happy with that. I think we're at 120, 130 registered online, and I think you're telling me another 50 odd people are coming as well. So. Yeah, 180. It's not me that's popular. I think it's the free beer that's on there and the kegs.
I actually honestly think it is you. I know there's two reasons for my side. Czech data community is very strong.
Yeah.
And people love to learn new things.
Especially here in Prague.
Especially in Prague, in Brno as well. Well, it's so close that people come to Prague, right? Yeah. And so, after COVID, people started to get together, and we've seen events, where there was 200, 300, 400 people. And I think, your experience, your battle scars.
Yeah.
And coming to Prague and talking about data modeling and stack is very interesting to people.
Cool. Well, it's been really good to see that response, and as you can see by today, we won't be sure of anything to talk about. I could talk about this, and it gets funnier with alcohol as well. So I think it's going to be a really entertaining night tomorrow night. I always love talking about it. So.
And to Chocho's question, so what is your next
big thing?
Big dream after Snowflake? What would you love to have?
Could be verbal about data.
So there's a few things that I'm looking at. I think the OLAP market's quite interesting to see what because of my passion for Power Play back in the day, and I just miss it. I think there's something there. I believe. I think it's all about simplification. I think that's simplification from the technology, abstraction from the technologies, and the ability to accelerate getting value quicker and with good, scalable, extendable data models. I think data model, and I keep going on about it, is that it's so important from a regulatory perspective, from a cost perspective for deduplication, from a single location for the truth, to not creating a monolith of a data platform, which we learned our mistakes with the whole PHP and single lamp stack of it was just a mess. It was really hard to untangle, and we don't want to go back to that one. I think what happened in that industry of having defined domains, pods that are running certain loads, having the microservice with contracts well defined, having Swagger that you knew them, having that located to a data store that owned that one. Never saw it all done very well perfectly, but that approach was something that the data world now needs to adapt. And I think what is happening is that influence always comes into it. I think we talk about those worlds overlapping more, of the operations and the data. Because of that, it's the same methodologies and thought processes and things that
in the mindset and then in the technology.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, and which is that whole, what DevOps did was bring the development and the operational teams together. And then after that, data ops added a bit more as well. And now FinOps adds the financial aspect to them. So each of them is another lens that the key thing they're doing is
how to bind
communication and collaboration between each of the different factors. So I think we're nearly there on covering everything on the different sectors. So I don't know what is the next lens that's going to have an ops for it. Or ML ops, I suppose it is, isn't it?
Well, Chris, this has been, I thought we were here for 50 minutes.
Yeah.
Guess how long? Hour and a half.
Really? I'm sorry, everybody.
So I'm just going to thank you for this. I mean, we didn't cover half of the questions we had.
No, right? We'll cover at the pub in a bit then.
Yeah, about
So we need to cut something.
Just to sum up, if I did make some notes, right?
Yeah.
So my first kind of like takeaway, big one, was like when you want to really, like do work with data, have a data project, you need to take care of the basics, which is FinOps, data ops, security ops, everything you just said, right? So it's about how the team works together, the social contract, if you will, right? Yeah. Then take care about the whole architecture and modeling, being a data mesh, data fabric, or whatever. Just know what you want to have and have a structure, right? Then how do you execute it? First, create an MVP, right? Which is kind of like take a business pain point and deliver on that, solve it, and then scale it, throughout the organization while creating a community where people can learn from each other, right?
Yeah, you couldn't have summed it up better. I couldn't have summed it up better myself.
Thank you. And so, like, while doing that, if you want to do the business outcomes and scale that, you need to have you need to first do proper qualification, like account management, use Medic or whatever, know who is the key holder, stakeholder, go after low-hanging fruits first, and then scale. And then you get a longer permission to actually create and iterate over the long term.
Exactly. Right? Exactly. You buy yourself time for success.
And couple of words of wisdom from Chris Tabb. So the next ERP and CRM systems will be built on top of Snowflake as powered by.
As a native apps, yeah.
As a native apps. I totally agree with that. I'm so excited. Why is he in Czech? People in Czech are good. That's why Late is coming to Prague, and they are fun.
Pretty much it, yeah.
It is, And your biggest kind of like wishes is kind of like Chris loves all up market because it's structured. And he's looking forward what's going to come as next iteration from there. And also he sees that the operating system in cloud, if you will, has too many pieces and technologies, and he's looking for some abstraction piece to accelerate getting faster to the value, but not in the monolithic way like it was before with Oracles.
Yeah.
But in kind of like discrete ways, microservices, etc.
Yeah.
So that was Chris Tabb, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. It's been great so far, and it's not over yet.
Yeah, let's go for the beers.
Yay!